Hey, Steve Saretsky here. I want to put together a quick video on basically just describing the different kinds of sales reporting there is. It really needs to be clarified because there seems to be a lot of confusion around the real estate board's numbers and what's actually a lot of what I'm putting out. So basically, there's three numbers that you need to know. There's the date of the purchase and contract. So that is the date when you, the buyer or the seller, you guys mutually agree on a price and it's basically a sold deal. You both sign on the dotted line. And then you have the subject removal date, which is generally on average, it's about 1 week after the agreement between you and the seller. And then after that, you have what's called the process sale date, which is the date that the real estate board actually receives the paperwork for that sale, for that transaction. So what the real estate board puts out every month in their sales report is the process sales. So they're taking all the sales that they've processed for that month, and that's what they're counting as sales, which means that, for example, in September, they're taking all the transactions that they've processed, which means they've received the paperwork, they've registered it all, they've checked it all off that we've received it, da 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 da. That's the number that they take for their sales numbers report. So basically what that means is a lot of the times, in fact, roughly about 25% of the time, is there's a delay in paperwork, realtors get lazy or whatever, they intentionally leave it up, I don't know, or they're short staffed, so the paperwork doesn't get into the board on time. It takes some time to process, which means that basically about 25% of the sales that's reported by the real estate board are actually from previous months, meaning that, let's just say hypothetically, you enter into contract on August the 15th. You got the buyer and the seller agree on August the 15th on a price. And then let's just say on August 21st, you guys remove the subjects. Now, it's supposed to that sale is supposed to be reported to the board within a week. But like I said, sometimes things just don't get done. The board doesn't receive it or whatever. So the board will most likely receive that paperwork in September. So even though you guys agreed on August 15th to a sale, you remove the subjects on August 21st, done deal. The board doesn't receive the paperwork till September. And now that August sale is going to count as a September sale by the real estate board. That's if you used process sales numbers, which the real estate board does in all of their reports. But what you really need, if you want to get a true understanding, a true gauge of the market, you need to actually look at the date when the contract was signed by both parties, because that's going to give you the psychology and the current market conditions of both the buyer and the seller, of what they feel the value is of a certain property. Meaning that if, let's just say hypothetically, you entered into contract to buy a house on July the 20th, and then obviously your foreign buyer's tax was introduced on the 25th and implemented on August the 2nd. So obviously the price that you guys agreed to on July the 20th is most likely would have been higher than the price you agreed to on August the 2nd. But the thing is, on that July 20th sale that you guys entered into, by the time the subjects get removed and the time the board receives the paperwork, that almost certainly will count as an August sale. So, which is kind of misleading, because if you think about it, that July sale is counting as an August sale. It's probably reflective of a July price and July market conditions. The market conditions changed instantly as soon as the foreign buyer's tax was introduced in August. So obviously, you have a July sale that's counting as an August sale. And that's the difference between process. So if you really want the most accurate, you have to look at the actual sold date. For realtors, there's actually a setting in the MLS that you actually have to go in and change if you want to look at the processed sales numbers. So 98% of realtors don't know this. I've had 20, 30 years experienced realtors come up to me and ask me what the difference is. This is the difference. You actually have to go in and change a setting in the MLS. Most people don't know this, but the only thing is, like I mentioned, if you're going to look at the sold date to give you current market conditions. You have to give yourself at least a couple of weeks for those sales to trickle through because they take time. So I don't blame the real estate board for putting out the process sales numbers, because that way they have real-time data. Otherwise, if you wanted to find out what the sales data, what happened, what was the market conditions for September, you would actually have to give yourself a couple weeks into October to then release the data. But the real estate board obviously wants to release it the next day, October 1st. So in order to do that, they have to actually use the process sales, so they can say this is how many deals that we processed in September. But there's a huge difference, like I said. So that's the difference between processed and sales. The actual sold date is the most accurate, but the only thing is it takes time, so the real estate board decides to use processed sales. But again, roughly 25% of the deals that you're seeing for any given month are actually deals from previous months, but they took time to get processed by the board, so they ended up in the following month. Hope that makes sense.